All right, sorry I am a few minutes late, but I'm here now, and I see there's a couple questions in the chat already. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Lance. I'm our Public Information and Communication Specialist. I'm going to try and do these lives as often as I feel like we need to. It's just a good way to do some live question and answer. Today's topic is really the secondary reopening, but any questions you have, bring them on. There are some school site specific questions that I won't be able to answer, but anything from the district level, the way we work the schedule, what the schedule means, that's the kind of stuff we're going to cover. All right, our first question from Diane. When will we know if our student is on A or B? So middle of this week, the portal closes tomorrow at midnight, but the school sites are already working on splitting up students into the different schedules, taking into account any schedule requests due to transportation issues. But it should be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at the latest. You will know before you have to take your student to campus next Wednesday. And that's going to come out possibly in an email or a text message as well. And then once the schedules are made and the students are assigned A or B, within the Aries parent portal, you can log in, and when you click on additional info for your student, it'll show up under attendance program 1. And then that's where it'll say A or B. If it's blank, that means the student's staying in distance learning. Will 7th period be every day? So 7th period, if we're talking about SECA, because SECA schedule is a little bit different because they have a 7th period. Every student has a 7th period. At other school sites, when a student has a 7th period, it's only going to take place online, and it's really not going to modify what they've already been doing this year. They'll hear more info from the school site and from the teachers. Can my son still attend the cohort he is in? And if so, how does that work with the hybrid schedule? Absolutely. We are doing nothing with cohorts. Cohorts have been such a great program for many of our students. And even though the state has really discontinued that, we are not going to. We're just discontinuing enrollment. But we are going to keep cohorts on site. And you can go ahead and you can put in your response for the hybrid schedule. Again, each school site is going to be a little bit different. I know the issue at elementary was there was a little bit of a time delay, but secondary shouldn't be the same. Can we switch from group A to group B for in-person learning due to my work schedule? Yes, go ahead and just email your school site principal. The earlier the better, and each of our principals are really working to accommodate our parents. It's been a hard enough year as it is, and our school sites are more than willing to work with each of you on a schedule that works best. I want to confirm there will be a teacher on campus in class with the students. Yes, and it's going to be live instruction. It's going to be hopefully like school was before this whole crazy pandemic thing happened, barring masks and other CDC guidelines and state guidelines. But the same teachers that your students had in the morning, those are the teachers that are going to be with them in the afternoon. And there's going to be very minimal changes to that, outside of the typical substitutes because a teacher has a sick day or can't make it to work. Does distance learning also start on the 14th? So since spring break just ended, tomorrow all students are going back to school and distance learning for our secondary schools. For elementary, tomorrow's the first day we're going to have some students come on site. But in-person learning starts on the 14th, and distance learning is continuing up until then. Explain the process the students will experience when working through this new hybrid program. Will they be doing double or redundant material? If they're doing morning classes and need to miss afternoon classes, will this be counted as an absence? It will. So I'll start with the first part of that. The afternoon sessions are not going to be a repeat of the morning sessions. It's just going to continue to build on the material they already learned. It's really an extension of that morning class, and our distance learning students are going to receive, the same opportunities, the same equitable opportunities to learn the same material. It's just going to be done asynchronously, vice in person. So, no redundancies. It's not just going to be a repeat of the morning sessions. It's, it really is, we're trying to make that first step back into normalcy. And then for absences, yes, afternoon sessions, teachers are going to be using that when it comes to attendance as well, along with the asynchronous classwork. But I think that, you know, every teacher is going to be doing it a little bit differently. And if you're not able to get your student to the school site that day that they're assigned for in-person learning, just reach out to the school site like you would normally for a regular absence. Will this schedule be for the rest of the year regardless of changes in tier level? For now, this is our schedule, but I think that if this pandemic has taught us anything, everything changes incredibly fast. And you know, it's really hard to say that this is exactly how it's going to be all the way until June 9th. But for now, we just plan on this schedule being it for our elementary and secondaries. But that's not to say that changes couldn't happen. Scott asked, are you scheduling siblings on the same A or B schedule? Yes. School sites are working together to make sure that households are on the same schedule. And part of that is for our parents that have, you know, children at the elementary school sites and making sure that schedule melds really well with the secondary school site. Were we supposed to hear from our SAI teachers for our kiddos with IEPs who can't handle these long schedules? I'm worried my daughter might not be able to. So what I would recommend doing is reach out to the IEP team, reach out to the school site. They're going to be the ones that could give you the best answer, because I know every situation is different, and the information I'm able to provide is very broad at the district level. Will their schedule change for distance learning? Michelle asked. Yes, so our distance learning students are going to be in distance learning. Basically, the schedule applies to our distance learning students. So on the schedule, when distance learning is identified, that's when our distance learning students are going to be performing distance learning. And then where it changes are the afternoons, Tuesday through Friday. So in the afternoons on Tuesday through Friday, the students are going to receive 120 minutes of asynchronous instruction time, and that's going to vary by school site and vary by teacher. And it could look different each day for what the teacher needs to provide to, you know, ensure that instruction's still happening. But their day will be ending earlier. It's just asynchronous instruction that's going to begin. It's live instruction that's ending earlier. Is the content instruction curriculum the same day to day between in person and at home? Yes. So whether your student is in distance learning or whether your student's in in-person learning, the only difference is the method of instruction. For the in-person folks, that is going to be 2 days a week, and then they receive asynchronous work 2 days a week. And then our distance learning students are going to receive asynchronous work 4 days a week. If my student's continuing distance learning, what will the afternoons consist of? 120 asynchronous minutes of asynchronous learning mean? Will they be online or working on their own as they are now? It really is going to depend on the teacher and the school site. It's going to be different. The best thing you could do is reach out to your students' teachers and ask them what their plans potentially are for asynchronous work. There isn't a full blanket answer I could give, but what I could tell you is it's going to be equitable to what their students are receiving in person. The delivery method is just a little bit different. My son wants to stay on distance learning, but what if he changes his mind? Can I put him in at a later date? That's also one of those ones that's going to vary by school site and based on space. Just I would stay in contact with the school site. You can send me an email also, and I can facilitate that conversation. But it really will be a case by case. I know that our classroom organization and the lesson plans are going to be filled out sort of based on that ratio between distance learning and in person, but small changes here or there, I'm sure is not going to be an issue. All right, Jackie, I just saw that. I think I wrote the wrong time on there. Let me double check. Okay, so I made a typo on my email today. I said that distance learning ends at 11:40. It ends at 11:20. Oh, that is my mistake. From my understanding, Monday will be late start and Tuesday through Friday will start at 8:30. It really depends. So on Monday it starts at 9. I have the schedule up on my other screen. That's why I'm looking away from you guys. So on Monday it starts at 9, and then Tuesday through Friday it's a start time of 8:10. But that's if your student has a period 0 or a period 7. If they don't have a period 0 or 7, then it starts at 9 as well. Let's see what else we've got. I know I got a couple of questions on my phone too. I'll pull up. All right. What if you need to change your response in Aries? It's actually pretty easy. If you go into your Aries parent portal account and just make sure that you have the correct student selected when you're in there. If you only have one, then no big deal, no need to change. You just have to go over to student information, and then you can go down to data confirmation and then click on authorizations, and you're able to change it from in-person to distance learning, but those changes can only be made up until midnight tomorrow. If you need to make any changes after that, then you can shoot me an email or send your school site principal an email, and we can work something out. And the reason that we had to close the portal was so that school sites, our secondary school sites, have enough time to plan these schedules, ensure that students are on the same schedule if they're in a household, same thing cross school site. All right, Jen has a question. If my daughter ends up liking in person, can she change her mind? Also, if my son chooses to stay home, can he still participate in his in-person graduation? If my daughter doesn't end up liking in person, can she change her mind? Our school sites are more than willing to work with you. It's such a strange time that we've all been thrown into, and this is all I know. I started here a month before the pandemic started. I don't know what normal school looks like from up here, and so it's going to be interesting, and I'm sure that it might not work out that great, and students may want to transition back into distance learning if that was a better option. And you just got to stay in contact with your school site. The best thing you can do right now is communicate. I think we've all learned how important communication is right now, and especially through email. Email is great. I remember when cell phones first came out, I got angry if people texted me, and now I live on email. And then if my son chooses to stay home, can he still participate in in-person graduation? We're still talking about graduation. The California Department of Public Health just updated their guidance on graduation, and it's considerably more restrictive than I think a lot of people hoped for. But Superintendent Binks is in close contact with the county, and trying to figure out what our best options are for that. But to answer your question, anything you pick now, whether it's distance learning or in person, is not going to affect any future events. It's only for the purposes of this hybrid schedule. So it'll have no effect on next year, and it wouldn't have any effect if we were to have an in-person graduation, which hopefully I'll have more information that I can share about that soon. If you want, you can go to the California Department of Public Health website, or if you just type in California Safe Schools for All and you go to the school dashboard, they have the new graduation requirements in there. But a lot of it is sort of what we expected based on current CDC and CDPH guidelines, but there are things in there that make it a little bit more strict. Is the current schedule going to be modified this year to have longer in-person learning days? So really, I don't have a great answer for that. I really don't. I can't tell you yes or no, but what I can tell you is there have been so many changes throughout this entire year. And although, 40 days doesn't seem like a ton of time, I think in pandemic time, it's an incredible amount of time. A lot of things can change in just that short period of time. For in-person PE, will students dress out on campus, or do they come to school in their PE clothes? That'd be a great school site question. That's something that could vary by school site, and not something that I have my hands deep in. So I think that's a great one to, give your school site a call. You can call them tomorrow. Everybody's going to be there. You can shoot your principal an email, send the secretary an email, and they should be able to answer that for you. You could also ask the PE teacher. What exactly is asynchronous learning, and when will we find out what track our kids are on, A or B? Hopefully you'll know mid this week, Friday at the latest, whether your students assigned to A or B. It'll come out in an email, text message, or I would start checking your Aries portal on about Thursday, Friday, and you can look under additional info, and then attendance program 1, and that'll tell you A or B. And then what is asynchronous learning? So asynchronous learning, I know asynchronous is like is kind of the word of the year. That's been a new one. That's, for me, for a lot of people, asynchronous basically means it's sort of, it really is going to vary by teacher. It could be a wide range of things. It could be a project that the student's working on. It could be recorded video. It could even be, live video depending on schedule. It could be an essay. It could be a series of videos. It could be a project in one of our distance learning apps, one of the 67 I think we purchased this year. It really could be, any range of those things. That's going to be a great question just for the teachers. Are there any options available for students that want to attend in-person school, but both parents work during the drop-off time? So here's what I know, Julie. I know that there are a lot of parents in the community, and I don't know if you're part of the groups on Facebook, or if you have Facebook, but I know on the UKIPA bulletin they've talked about this, and then same thing in the distance learning support group. And if you guys want links to those groups, send me an email. And I know that a lot of parents are trying to put together carpooling programs, if that's something that would be a good option if you really want your student to come to school. I unfortunately don't have a great answer other than, I think our community is more than willing to help each other out, which I think is incredible. You know what schools are offering stars? Right now, I only know about stars for our elementary school sites. I do not know what the plans are for our secondary school sites as of right now. But a lot like our elementary school sites, there are going to be after-school activities, and some of those activities that our students are already participating in, the times are going to change a little bit so that it doesn't interfere with the hybrid schedule. And then I'm not ignoring you guys, looking at my phone for other questions. And then I can go and check the FAQs. I'm not seeing much on Facebook. I think one great thing that we could talk about is, how we came up with the schedule that we did. But Deborah, I'll answer your question first. Will students need backpacks, or will books stay at school? Our real goal here is to not have a lot of moving parts between home and between school, or between, where the student is prior to school and coming to school. So you really want to kind of minimize what your student's bringing to school. Obviously, if there's something that absolutely has to come, then the teachers will communicate that. But our school sites are going to have plenty of supplies on site to ensure that our students don't need to bring supplies from home. And it's to ensure that everybody's safe. I know that, there's a lot of differing studies on how long COVID lasts on surfaces, and but just to mitigate all of that, we're going to have everything on site that your student may need. But teachers may specify something different, so it could end up being teacher specific. Is there any way to find out what the teachers' plans are for asynchronous learning? The best way to find out is to ask your students' teachers. I'm sure you've had constant contact with them this year. I think this year has been interesting. I think a lot more of our parents have been communicating with their children's teachers, and I think that's great. And that's something that we should absolutely continue doing. So if you have any questions about what the asynchronous learning plans are, you should by all means reach out to your students' teachers. And so if we are staying home, the idea is distance learning as it has been, and then homework, asynchronous work, or is that not correct? No, that's correct. It's going to be distance learning 5 days a week, all day Monday, and then Tuesday through Friday, you're looking at that 120 minutes of asynchronous time in the afternoons. And again, that's all going to look really different by teacher and school site. But the idea is, just because students are coming in person, they should be receiving the same level of instruction as our students are that are staying in distance learning. Just the delivery method's a little bit different. So for the first week back, it looks like one group gets to come back in person 2 times, the other group gets to come back only once. Is that correct? That's correct, Julie. So April 14th was the very first day that we really were eligible to have our students come back on campus, and so that's what we rolled with. The Board of Education or our administrators didn't want to take any more time out of what our students have missed over the last year. So coming back on the 14th, it's starting with Group B, and Group B is going to get 2 sessions that week, while Group A gets 1 session. But then it's going to be back on the normal schedule the following week. A midweek start is a little bit funny in the middle of the year, but when you think about the beginning of the school year, we generally start in the middle of the week. And then we could talk about how did we come up with the secondary schedule. I could give you some background on that. Secondary schedules are no small feat, because of every single school site is a little bit different, and we really needed a plan that offered the same amount of instruction time across school sites. With the exception of Green Valley, their required instruction time is a little bit different, so your schedule looks slightly different. But making sure that that periods flowed well together, that student transitions were able to happen within a stable group, because a lot of students have schedules that are very unique to other students, and a lot of that came into play, along with trying to make something that was not only equitable with our elementary schedule, but also something that worked well with our elementary schedule. So we really tried to find a schedule that worked best with the pickup and drop off times for our elementary students, as well as our secondary students, just in case we had households that were split across the different schools. All students do distance learning in the mornings, regardless if students choose to do in-person in the afternoons. That's correct. So every single student does distance learning on Mondays, and then every student does distance learning on the mornings, Tuesday through Friday. It's just those afternoon sessions where it becomes a little bit different. Our in-person students come in 2 days a week and then perform asynchronous work 2 days a week. And then our distance learning students in the afternoons do 4 days of asynchronous work. Okay, what else do we have? We have a low number this time. Only 76 people are here. I think for the elementary reopening, I had about 200 on here. You guys gotta get your friends to start coming to this. I like hearing myself talk, and I like talking in front of people. What other kind of questions do you have? And just to clarify, I know this is about secondaries, but there's been a lot of questions about elementary. Elementary is back, in person tomorrow, starting with Group A. All right, Alexandra asked, have transportation factors been addressed? So this was long before I got here, and I know that transportation it seems to be a lot of people's concern for the midday in-person session. And luckily, a lot of our community members have come together and they're setting up carpools. You know, they're working with one another. If there's another family that their schedule is something that you'd like your student to get onto because that's how transportation works best, then you could shoot me an email and send the school site principal an email. We'll do whatever we can to work with you on transportation issues. I know a lot of parents work on certain days or don't work on certain days or times. Let's see, is elementary schools back to 5 days a week? No, elementary schools are not 5 days a week. The reason that Group A is coming back tomorrow is because today everybody was off for spring break still, and so their distance learning day was part of spring break. But they're on the same sort of AB schedule. It really is really close to the same across the board for both elementary and secondary, and that's going to stay common for us at least. You know, the last thing we would want to do is make someone feel like they're missing out because their student isn't in 6th grade yet, or because their student's in 5th grade. So we really try to keep those schedules equitable across the board. For high school, should they just come with no supplies their first day back? That would be a good school site question, but the goal is to bring as little as possible to the school site to prevent cross-contamination. If something does get brought to the school site, then the intent is for it to stay there through the remainder of the year. So there's not that continual back and forth. And I can get that answer for you, but what I would recommend doing is reaching out to each of the teachers, ask them what they're going to require when your child comes in person, and you could also reach out to the school site principals. Do they need to take their Chromebook? No, they do not. You know, we were fortunate enough already that we had a good deal of technology before the pandemic hit, but once the pandemic hit, you know, we were given the resources we needed to put technology in the hands of each of our students. And the goal for the remainder of this year is to not have to bring your Chromebooks back, and you can use the ones that are in the Chromebook carts in the classroom. And do you have any idea what they're going to do next year? Right now, you know, the main focus really has been our elementary and secondary school rollout, ensuring that we have a smooth reopening, something that's going to be beneficial for our students for the remaining 40 days of the school year. But talks about next school year have been happening all year already, just because of the quick changing nature of the pandemic. It's really hard to hammer down one specific plan, but you know, across multiple plans, hopefully seeing that the guidelines don't get scaled back. Hopefully our reopening doesn't slow down for California or for San Bernardino County. But once I know more, and once I know that there's a plan set in place, I will share it with you. Any talk about graduation plans yet? Graduation is, I know I talked about it a little bit earlier, but you know, the California Department of Public Health did update their graduation, really didn't update, but they provided graduation guidelines and requirements for school districts. And it's more restrictive than I think a lot of school districts were hoping for, but at the same time, we understand where they're coming from. And so what our team is trying to do is trying to really gauge what an in-person graduation could look like based on those guidelines. If you have, what you can do is I can put the link in the chat. I have it, or I can include it in my next message. But if you just go to the California Safe Schools for All hub, you can just Google Safe Schools for All, and it's the first thing that comes up. Their updated graduation requirements are on there, and you can go through and kind of see what we're looking at when what we're up against for the planning process. You know, space is really what is going to be the deciding factor, I think, for graduation for a lot of school districts, just because you know, especially until we get into those considerably more restrictive tiers, we would still have to move down 2 tiers before capacity changes would come into effect. Once I know more about graduation, though, you guys will know more about graduation. Will the distance learning kids be online for their AB group in the afternoons? So for our secondary students, our distance learning students are not going to be assigned to an AB type schedule. What they're just going to receive asynchronous work from their period teachers from the mornings, and they're going to continue on that asynchronous work in the afternoons. So they do not need to be online for the respective A and B groups because they won't be assigned one. But again, everything's going to look different for every single teacher, every single school site. I don't want to cut out any possibilities or say what possibilities could be because it really can vary a great deal at that level. How is the schedule actually starting next week? Original digital or the new hybrid? So the hybrid schedule that just went out, that is what's starting next Wednesday. Students are going to continue in distance learning, here after spring break ends and into next week. But once Wednesday rolls around, that's when our in-person students are finally going to be able to come back on campus. For some of our 9th graders, even 10th, 11th, 12th graders, if they came from other school districts, this could be their first time, looking at their campuses. Same with our 6th graders, 7th and 8th. I would be excited if I had never been on campus before, even if it's for a short amount of time. I miss that about going to school. I wish I was still in high school. This whole adulting thing is not working out. Up until lately, the info was always DL would not change, so I was surprised when they cut back synchronous time for DL. I'm curious what the reason was on that. So it was to fit in that in-person time in the afternoon. With how many different teachers there are at the secondary level and the subjects they teach, we don't have enough teachers really to cover down on a distance learning and in-person session simultaneously. And so that wasn't an option for us. And we're always hiring. If somebody watching it, if you're a certificated teacher and you're looking for work, you go to edjoin.org and type in UKIPA. We are looking for teachers. We're always looking for people. We'll have an ad in the Newsmere this weekend that is going to talk about positions that we have open. That'll be published on Friday. And then I believe by Thursday, HR is planning on adding a lot more positions to edjoin.org. So please head over there. If you want to come work for the school district, see what it's like to work at a school site, work at the district office, that's the place to go, edjoin.org. So Monday and Tuesday next week, it will be the same schedule as this week, correct? That's correct, Susan. So up until everything is considered unchanged up until Wednesday when Group B first steps foot on campus. Let's see. I'm just checking out my emails to see if there's anything I haven't covered that I got asked today. Okay, so I did just get an email about who should I contact to request a specific schedule for my student. You can email me, and what I can do is I can forward it to the school site principal, or you can email the principal directly and just CC me. I know that Parkview, if you're a Parkview parent, they opened up a form where I believe you can submit your schedule request. But if that's something that you need to communicate to the school site, something that works better for you because your elementary students are on a certain schedule or because there's some transportation issues, by all means, send me an email or send an email to the school sites. Will the district be monitoring excessive busy work during the asynchronous afternoons? Kids already have challenges in this new learning environment. You know, like I said, it's really gonna vary by teacher, and the only way that we ever know that, you know, if you feel like there's an issue or there's something unfair going on, the only way we would know is if you communicate with us. So by all means, communicate with us. You can email me, but you should really start at your school site. You know, just discuss the issue with the teacher, and if you feel like there's still a problem, you can take it to the principal. But by all means, if you're comfortable emailing me, you can email me anything, and I will get it to the right people. If we end up doing drive-by graduation, has a date been set for that, just in case? Not yet. I do not have a date yet. But once I have a date, and once, there's going to be more information coming out. We're going to send more information about graduation soon. The guidance was just published a short while ago, and the county, both Riverside and San Bernardino County are analyzing what these Department of Public Health changes mean to their departments of public health, and then what that looks like at the district level. I can put that link in the chat. So here's the link for the updated graduation guidance. Will final exams happen during distance learning on in-person? That'd be a great teacher question. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds and talk about what specific teachers or specific school sites could be doing when it comes to that. That would just be a great teacher question, because I do not have an answer for you. I also just put my email in the chat if you don't already have it. I know a lot of emails get kicked back because I go by Lance, but my full name is Lancey. So when you're emailing me, you just got to make sure you include that Y on the end. Otherwise, it'll get kicked back. You can also use our contact us email. And that goes straight to my email inbox, as well as Superintendent Binks. And please don't get offended if I'm replying from her email inbox. Any of the answers that I'm giving you, she is more than aware of the emails that have come in, and an answer that I have given is something that I've already ran by her. For existing cohorts, they still attend as normal on campus, then go to specific in-learning for those days that they're in-person learning for them. It's going to vary by school site. I know the cohort situation is a little bit different at each school site, and it also is going to depend on any IEPs that are in place. So that'd be a great thing to work out with the IEP team, or to work out with the school site principal, or who's been leading the cohort, to kind of find out what that's going to look like specifically for your student. A while back, a video was on Instagram saying art, band, and sports were starting again, but I never heard anymore. Has something been decided on those groups yet? Yes. So I would reach out to, if you're a Yucaipa High School parent, I would reach out to Yucaipa High School. I know that, sports are, a lot of sports regulations are loosening up with our recent move into the red tier from the purple. We're no longer required to test for COVID-19 in some of our more high contact sports like water polo and football. And if you check out the district Facebook page, there's a link on there to watch our live football games, and sometimes the water polo games, depending on if those streaming the service tag our Facebook page. But that happens frequently. You can go on there, you can check out a football game. I know it's not the same as going to a game and watching it, but they're on our Facebook feed. Okay, I can reach out to Mesa View, Jackie, and find out. I'm not totally sure, but I could talk to Miss Pearson and Miss Aguilar about that. And our school sites are going to be pushing out information also. I know Parkview pushed out a message on Saturday or Sunday, and it talked sort of, it was sort of like a mini orientation through email, and you'll be receiving orientations from each of the school sites as we near the 14th. And it's going to cover a lot of those school site specific questions. Let's see. And how will YHS manage traffic? That is a good YHS question. I am not sure, and to be honest with you, I have not worked here while students were going on campus at any of our school sites. So it's all going to be interesting to me and a learning opportunity for myself also. I know I got into education at kind of a weird time. I'll push out another message, just a reminder that the portal is closing, the Aries Parent Portal is closing, and I'll go through and pull some of these questions into our FAQ so it gets posted on our website. I try to update our school reopening dashboard daily, and I'll share that in the chat also. Yeah, absolutely, Brian. I think that's a great idea. School site Q&A for each school. I think that's good because things can vary so much. We have 14 school sites in total. It's hard to give a good definite answer from the district level on what's happening. So there's our school reopening dashboard. That's going to give like the district level FAQs. We also have our COVID safety plan, along with some other state information, and our COVID-19 dashboard. On our dashboard, you can view how many cases we've had in the last 14 days. But luckily, it's been pretty slow for us and for a lot of other communities. I think Orange County just is moving into the orange tomorrow, also, and San Bernardino County should be moving into the orange, which doesn't really change a whole lot, but it just means that we're on the right path. It's that yellow tier is where guidelines sort of change again, and that's when indoor capacities are different. Social distancing is still in play, but once we get to that yellow, that's when our capacity limits go from 25% to 67%. And I'll just wait a few minutes for some more questions if you have them. I don't want to take up anybody's time trying to fill it with stuff. Here we go. Jackie asked, if they have a COVID positive student, will they quarantine every class that student had contact with? So what we have in place right now, if a student or a staff member seems to be exhibiting symptoms, we have a wellness room where we can, immediately get that student or staff member sort of isolated from the stable group to ensure it doesn't spread. But we do contact tracing. We have a great team that has been doing this for our staff, and even though it's been slow right now, at the beginning of this year during that peak, our contact tracing team was busy, incredibly busy. And you can actually, if you go back to, I believe it's our February board meeting, Julie Gainey and Diana Todd were recognized for their hard work doing the contact tracing. I have no doubt that's difficult, but they're going to continue doing it, as long as we need to keep everybody safe. And if there is a positive student, then obviously we would notify you, and that way you could watch for symptoms. What we're also going to do is, I have it set up for elementary right now, and I'll set it up for secondary. But every day on your student's respective day, you're just going to get an email. It's a short COVID screener. You don't need to do anything. It just asks the basic questions, just like if you were going into a restaurant or other establishment in town. And I'm trying not to spam you guys with the mass messages, but those will be coming out twice a week, only on the days that your student is coming on campus. And if you're not getting our district communications, please shoot me an email, and I can get you opted back in. It's really easy with email. With email, all I have to do is delete the opt-out response. But for text, it's a little bit different because it's handled by the FCC really tightly. But even then, it's really easy. I just need you to text a number and say subscribe, and it gets you right back in. Thank you, Alexandra. We have a great team here. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate the people I work with. I left the Marine Corps, and I was not excited to do that. But I could not be in a better place. I have absolutely no regrets and would not trade this school district for anything. Everybody here works incredibly hard and cares about our children. Will attendance be required once assigned to in-person afternoon group? Yes, attendance will be taken into account. So just like any other school day, if your student's not able to make it, you should communicate that with the school site and the teacher. And then that goes for the COVID symptoms too. If you think your child or somebody in your household is showing symptoms of COVID, just reach out to the school site and let them know, and let them know that your student's not going to be coming on campus that day. What we're going to be doing at the school sites is temperature screening. So anybody that's over 100.4 degrees, they're going to be sent back home to make sure that COVID doesn't get spread, and hopefully we can keep our numbers down. I think last I looked, we were at 3.8 per 100,000 residents, which is super low. I had no idea that's where we were going to be when we were up in the 100s back in January. Is the video going to be saved? Yes. Yeah, if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, all my previous live streams are on there. So you can go back and watch it at any time. And if you keep the live chat up, you can scroll through and just wait for the question you were looking for to pop up, and then only watch that little bit. That way you don't have to go through 48 minutes of listening to me talk again. There's one part of the website that we just added that I would like to share. And I'll put it in the chat right now. So I created a school news and events submission. And it really, if there's something good that's going on in our community that involves one of our students, one of our parents, a community member that some way ties back to YCJ USD, please let me know. I would love to get those stories out. I would love to do a press release. I would love to work with our local media to get those stories out. So if there are any great ideas that you guys have, please go on there and submit them. You can also read the current press releases we have on there. There's 2, as well as you can go in there and look at some of these laws that go into our plans that we formulate. There's a link on there that talks about important California state legislation, and that's what gives us, sort of our bounds between A and B, what we can do, what we can't do. If your student drives, will a parking pass be required? I have the link for this. Mr. Kirkland had answered this earlier this week for me. Let's see. Somewhere in here. Okay, so for parking, the best thing you could do is call the high school. They are opening up senior parking registration for the 21-22 school year in late July. That's the information that I was forwarded. Let's see. So that's the high school's number. If you have a parking question, that's the place to call, and they'll be on site tomorrow. So you can give them a call, 8:30, 9 o'clock, really anytime during working hours, you'll be able to get a hold of somebody and they could answer that question for you. See, if my students are doing only online, what would the afternoon schedule look like? Since it's going to be asynchronous, it's really going to vary by school site and by teacher, but that asynchronous time is not considered live instruction, but it really is going to be, it could be a recorded session. It could be some time with the teacher. It could be, I wouldn't rule anything out, but what I could tell you is it's going to be equitable to what our students in person are receiving, so that everybody's receiving the same information, and try to keep everybody on the same level throughout the end of the school year and into next. Our kids required to use a mask during recess, so masks are required at all times, just like any place else that we go right now. We're still required to wear masks, and our school sites won't be any different. Our staff are wearing masks every day, and we're expecting the students to as well. And that's part of, I just sent a communication to our elementary students, which I'll send the same one to you next Monday. And it just kind of outlines some of the safety procedures before your student comes on campus. And masks is one of those things covered. Hey, thanks, Denise. If you have a story, you could put one in there. I need some stories. So I'll wait a few more minutes. If I don't have any more questions, then I'll close it up. I won't waste you guys' evening. Did this time seem to work out for everybody? I know before I was kind of doing them in the middle of the day. I tried to push it a little bit later. I could do it even later if that would work better for everybody. I'm more than willing to hear. I'm more than willing to get feedback. Whatever works for you guys is what works for me. Look at that. I'm just getting a bunch of notifications that people are subscribing to my channel. Are students allowed to bring bottles of water or snacks? So it is going to be up to the school sites. However, what I can tell you about water is a lot of our school sites have installed water bottle fillers. It's those fancy drinking fountains where you can put your bottle under there and it automatically fills, and then it tells you how many plastic bottles were saved. I always thought those were cool. It's kind of like, who can get the highest numbers. Whenever they started putting those in around base, a lot of my friends, we would try to rotate to find the one that had the highest number. What bored Marines do. I have no doubt students would do the same thing. You guys are very welcome. I'm happy to be here. And will there be food services? There will. Curbside meal pickup is still going to be happening. There could be some changes to the schedule just based on what's going on with the hybrid schedule. That way, meal pickup isn't happening at the same time that drop off or pickup is happening for our in-person students. But more information for that will be coming very soon. And as far as food goes, what we're doing at the elementary sites is a grab and go at the end of the day. So the eating isn't necessarily happening on campus, just providing the students with a meal on their way out the door. But the curbside meals are still going to be happening through the end of the year at school. So there will not be like a cafeteria environment for the short period of time that the students are there. It'll be a grab and go, sack lunch, pack lunch. So in that lunchtime when students are at home, they would eat at home, come to school, and then as they're leaving school, they would get a meal to take home with them. And it looks like that information based off for curbside pickup, we may be pushing out some more information here coming as early as Thursday. Hey, Semper Fi, Jim. I just got out about a year and 8 months ago now, I think. I was in for 9 years, 29 palms for 6 of it. All right, if we have no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and log off before we hit that hour mark. I took up plenty of your guys' time already. If I end up getting a ton more questions, I could do another live stream. It's easy enough to hop on YouTube and look at my camera for a little bit. So, and if you guys want me to modify the time, give me some feedback. I am more than willing to hear what works best for you. I'm here just to advocate for you and to give you information. So, with that being said, if you have any questions, please email me. Refer back to the earlier part of this video. Email your school sites for school site specific questions, but you can email me. You can email me anything, and I'll get you to the right place. So I hope everybody had a great Easter yesterday, had a great spring break, and I look forward to being able to visit school sites with some students actually there.